really nice to be here. I want to say good evening to everybody first. Welcome to current students. Welcome back to Alumni. And thank you to everybody who braved the cold and the snow, whether past or upcoming, to be here tonight. Thank you to the Office of Alumni and Parent Programs for organizing us all and getting us all here. And thank you, as always, to President Decatur for being the great presence he is in this. And thank you for really nice and representative. It's always strange to hear yourself talked about at very getting ready for tonight, I started trying to think back over what February 1997 this moment in my own senior year was like. And the biggest thing that's come back to me over the chasm of that 18 years is how quickly everything has started to go. By this point in the year, we had already danced our feet sore at Philander's February Fling, which we don't even have anymore. We had toasted our professors at Fandango. Some people were starting to get jobs, grad school offers, fellowship offers. Some people were worrying that those offers might not come. We were finishing off comps department by department. Congratulations to the student finished comps today. Essay by essay, exam by exam, performance by performance. My days and nights were a blur of trying to keep up with classwork, trying to get any sleep at all, trying to stay hidden from the honors advisor. Truth. Trying not to get sick, trying to write, trying to get ready for comps in my second major. My vague memory, which is absolutely as much a construction and a dramatization as it is any kind of truth, is that one day it was February 20th, and the next day I was wearing a black robe and crossing the stage in front of Samuel Mather Hall, and doing my best to remember to smile and not to fall down while being photographed and getting my diploma. And then I stayed one last night in Leonard Hall, got up early the next day to pack my car, and drove home. And then my Kenyon career was over. Now, obviously, I was hoping I was making a laugh line, but maybe there will actually be that. Maybe some of the laugh lines will work, but you're having some fun to be a professor. But listen to learn. Now, obviously, that's not the way it actually went. And obviously, my Kenyon career was not actually over in May 1997. And what I want to do in the next few moments is offer some thoughts for your last months on campus, at least in this role, that I hope will help you feel your way toward the next stage of your relationship with this place. I'm glad to be here tonight in part because one of the moments I've found unexpectedly delightful in my relationships with former students is the one just after graduation when I get to say, "Congratulations, fellow alum." And this year I get to unpack that moment just a little bit in advance of when it will actually happen. Now, I'm not alone in looking forward to congratulating you and welcoming you to our alumni body. I think you're getting that sense tonight. Once you've crossed the stage in May, you'll join a group, the Kenyon Alumni Association, that includes more than 18,000 other people who have graduated from this place. The intrepid and generous people who have traveled here to the Hill for this volunteer weekend are only the advance guard of a much larger group who are proud of you. Looking forward to meeting you. Keeping an ear out, whether they know it or not, for your mention of Kenyon on city streets and county roads far from here. And I could tell you a list of stories as long as my arm of times that I've been. One of my favorite ones is walking down the street in Portland, Oregon, not long after the baccalaureate intersection, with my suitcase to catch a tram to go to the airport to get a rental car, and I hear somebody go, "Professor Heidt?" It's like someone who had just graduated. Just saw me on the street and called out, or we were waiting to get tickets for a tour at the Globe Theatre in London last fall, and someone overheard that we were talking about Kenyon and turned around and said, "Are you from Kenyon?" And it turned out that she was a Kenyon grad. So it was like, wear your shirt, see what happens. It's actually kind of fun as an experiment. Go to the grocery store somewhere far from here, someone will come up to you and say, "Wow, my brother's friend's fiance's daughter is going in." All right, so as you get ready to go into the wider world, which I refuse to call the real world, as if you hadn't been living in the real world until now, there are all kinds of ways you can stay connected to this tiny, special place. All kinds of ways that you can rely on it and allow it to rely on you. And it has to go both ways. There are Kenyon regional associations in major cities all over this country. They have regional presidents and steering committees. They organize regional events and programs. They help young alumni, like you will be in a few months, get oriented in new cities as they make their ways out into the world. They're looking forward to your participation and your energy. There are ways to volunteer for the admissions office, working at college fairs, or conducting alumni interviews. There's the Kenyon Career Network, which offers thousands of contacts willing to help you find employment and seek opportunities, and they will look forward to you helping future generations of Kenyon students, future generations, all of Kenyon, find employment and seek opportunities. There are bodies you may want to join if you'd like to take an active role in shaping and tending Kenyon's future. If you've been a member of a Greek organization, you may want to join the Greek Alumni Leadership Council. You can get involved with the Alumni Council. You can stay connected to Kenyon's finances through the Kenyon Fund Executive Committee. Indeed, and you knew this was coming, we hope that you'll all remain connected to Kenyon's finances somehow, to whatever extent you're able and willing to be by donating to the Kenyon Fund. And I say this as someone who, for those first few years out, while my annual income was hovering around $13,000 a year during grad school, was writing checks for $10 or $20 because that's what I had. So anything you give is good. You're measured by participation. And giving money to the Kenyon Fund is, in a sense, the simplest way you can both affirm the value of your liberal arts education and support the college as it strives to offer an ever stronger Kenyon experience to future generations of students and alums. The important thing, and the thing I hope you'll keep in mind, is that every one of us has an individual relationship with this wonderfully strange and intense place. It's a relationship made up of things we've loved, things we've loved less, things we're glad we'll never have to do again, things we wish we could keep doing forever. And it's a relationship with people we cherish, people who have shaped us in small and great ways, ways emotional and intellectual, professional and personal. Kenyon is different for every person who comes through here, and everyone's postgraduate relationship with Kenyon is just as unique and individual, and just as dynamic. The Alumni Office will always be glad to know what you're doing and accomplishing, where you're living, and how you might want to stay connected to the college. They'll be glad to send you the Alumni Bulletin, which is fabulous, and which will help you keep abreast of what's going on here on the Hill, and what other alums are doing out in the world. And those of us who will remain here after you leave in May will always be glad to see you too, whether here in Gambier or somewhere out in the world. Now, I can't imagine that things are moving any more slowly for you right now than they did for me in 1997. In fact, they probably feel like they're moving faster. And so what I want to offer you now is a kind of assignment for your last few months here, a set of questions that I hope you'll make some quiet moments to ask yourself. So here's one. What are the parts of your Kenyon experience that have been most important to you? What are you going to miss? Whom are you going to miss? Make time for those people, those things in the coming months. Things are speeding up, but you have time left, so use it well. What do you still need to learn from us, or from one another? If you could only ask a few more questions, what would you cut to the chase and ask? And I'm thinking about those questions in part because the neurologist and writer Oliver Sacks just announced yesterday that he has terminal cancer. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Times and said, "It is up to me now to choose how to live out the months that remain to me. I have to live the richest, deepest, most productive way I can." I botched that a little bit, so I'm going to say it again. I have to live in the richest, deepest, most productive way I can. In fact, this choice and this charge are up to all of us, all the time. As is perhaps the biggest question I can ask you, the question I hope that your time here has helped you to ask in ever more complex and fascinating ways. Who are you, anyway? How does who you are now relate to who you were when you arrived here 3.5 years ago? Who are you still becoming? And how then shall you live? Every one of you will have a different answer to those questions, of course, which is part of what can make the last few months of a Kenyon career challenging. You might find that what you need to do in order to start saying goodbye to this place is to spend as much time with all of your friends as you possibly can without failing comps and all your courses. And don't fail all your courses. You might find that what one of those friends needs to do is to spend more and more time alone, processing what's happening to him or her. You might find that the last thing yet another of your friends wants to do is talk about your upcoming graduation or departure at all. That it's just too painful, or too frightening, or even too exciting to contemplate. Ultimately, we say goodbye to this place, even if only temporarily, alone, just as we make all transitions, including that last transition from life into death, alone. I think that that's part of what makes all transitions, all threshold moments, difficult. Not only do they mark a moment when we move from something we think we know into something we're pretty sure we don't know, but we also undertake them alone, even when we're surrounded by people and a place that we love. So here's a little more advice, even though as I get older, I find myself getting more and more wary of dispensing advice as such. Mark your transitions. Mark this one. Mark the ending that's coming. Pay attention to what it feels like. The parts of it that are joyful and celebratory and exhilarating, the parts of it that are scary and sad and uncertain, the parts that fall somewhere in between. Mark the vastness of possibilities that are opening up for you now. Mark the vastness of what you're leaving behind. It may well rock you to do this, and you will need to do it in your own way. But I encourage you to do it. So what I did to say goodbye to this place in 1997 was this. In those days, we graduated on Sunday, and we were allowed to stay over until Monday at noon, which I now recognize was a total luxury. Every year I watch people try to pack up and get out of here a few hours after graduation, and I think, so glad we didn't have to do that. I had planned to leave on Sunday afternoon and to caravan back to Indiana with my parents, but then something about the crowds of graduates and professors and families, all those hundreds of people all over Ransom Lawn, seemed to overwhelm my father in a way that I hadn't anticipated it might, and you may get your chance to experience family members and friends panicking a little bit in unexpected ways. But he was worried about traffic, about getting home at a reasonable hour, and I was worried about getting some pictures with friends and also, truth, not having done nearly enough packing in my moment single. So, my parents and brother went home, and I stayed that one last night. The first thing I did after things settled down a bit, and I changed back out of my graduation clothes, was to start visiting my professors' houses and crying in their living rooms. Wailing might be a better description of what I was doing, wailing mostly about how much I was going to miss them, which was completely true. After I'd done that to a couple of people, I decided that enough was enough, and I made my way to Sunset Point. Now, I hadn't spent a lot of time at Sunset Point since my first year at Kenyon, though it was actually our class's gift to put a new bench there, and I can't remember whether it was in yet when we were graduating. And somehow it seemed like a good place to go that evening. And so I went, and I sat by myself, and sat in the lowering sunlight and faced that western vista, and I cried, and cried, and cried, until I had cried enough. I was there for a while. I didn't know exactly why I was crying. I was definitely ready to leave. I was ready to go to the grad school I had chosen. I was ready to begin the post-Kenyon life I was imagining for myself, some aspects of which have even turned out kind of the way I thought they might, sort of. I didn't know why I was crying then, but I have a better sense now. And it's that endings are hard, and so are beginnings. So to carry you through the months of endings and beginnings that are now upon you, I want to tell you two things that have been my premises throughout these remarks. Things I believe deeply that I accept almost as fact. One may, by now, be getting tiresome to seniors I have taught this year. You've probably recited with me. You are okay. You're not going to be okay if you pass comps, or achieve one more thing, or get the best job, or win the great award, or win a championship. You are already okay. You just are. That's the way it is. Don't forget that. Let it sink in. You are already okay. And the other is a little touchier. But I think that if you let it too sink in, you may find it reassuring. You are going to fail. At some point, Probably at some points, you're going to fail at something. You might fail at something really pretty spectacularly. You might fail at something very small. My guess is that you, like I, like probably everyone in this room, will do all of the above. Failure right now. And notice, take clear notice, that I am not telling you that you will be a failure, much less that you are a failure. Remember, you are okay. I'm telling you that you will fail and that that is okay, and that that is even necessary. One of the most important things my very wise dissertation director ever said to me was that among her students, the ones who had led the most interesting lives were the ones who were not afraid to fail. Those students, and she didn't tell me this then, but I know it now, were the ones willing to risk, willing to turn towards something with daring, willing to try and to grow. When she told me that, and it was about 6 years after I had graduated from here, so I'm trying to advance you a little. When she told me that, I couldn't process it, and you may not be able to process it now. I know that so much of what I've learned at Kenyon and beyond has taken years to sink in, to germinate, to flower and bear fruit. And I know that much, if not most, of what I have learned, I haven't even known I've been learning. This may be your experience too, especially in these jam-packed last few months. It's all getting in there, though. It's all going to be good, useful, important, valuable for something. Be patient with yourselves in the lead up to May. Be patient with each other. Be good to yourselves and to each other. And remember, this whole alumni body of this utterly unique place, we were all where you are now, even though many of us were in a building that no longer exists. Those of us who are here tonight, and the thousands more who are scattered around the world doing their work and living their lives, we're all making our ways through our presence and toward our uncertain futures too. And on behalf of all of us, I'll say one more time, welcome. Welcome. We're looking forward to spending much more